First tonight, a statement from the board of editors of the Arise News channel. Yesterday, we aired an interview with the Labour Party's vice presidential candidate in the 2023 elections, Yusuf Baba Ahmed, where he suggested that the armed forces have some role in the swearing in of Nigerian presidents. They do not. Our constitutional democracy is anchored on judicial independence and judicial intervention when necessary. Imperfect as our judiciary may be, we must stand together with democracy and its inbuilt corrective mechanisms. Now to the week that was, and amid growing concern about the tide of violence in this country, earlier in the week, President Tinubu declared a nationwide security emergency in response to recent mass kidnappings of hundreds of people and militant attacks in different parts of Nigeria. It includes abductions just a couple of days ago here in the Federal Capital Territory, in which 6 girls and a teenage boy were taken by armed men in the Buhari Area Council. And of course, the more than 250 students who were taken by gunmen from a school in Niger State last week. Nigeria is currently embroiled in a security crisis that is proving to be an enormous domestic challenge. Meanwhile, the police say the 11,000 officers who are assigned to look after VIPs will be transferred to other roles in order to strengthen frontline security. Critics saying that Nigerian VIPs are given special police protection, while rural communities are left to fend for themselves. So what does this new security approach, together with the declaration of a nationwide security emergency, mean? And with me to look back at the week that was are 3 commentators who are experts at scouring those headlines and unearthing everything that's above and under the radar and inspiring us with their illuminating beacons of knowledge. And they are the policy strategist and group CEO of the global investment and trade company, Baba Yusuf, the Niger Delta activist, international multimedia journalist and former BBC correspondent Donu Kogbara, and the legislative consultant and public policy analyst, Dr. Chibuzo Okereke. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let me come to you first, Baba Yusuf. So a national security emergency has been declared in Nigeria. Is that a step forward? Because the thinking seems to be that once you accept there is a crisis, it means that you'll move to put more effort and more resources into mitigating that crisis.
That's correct, Charles. Albeit this declaration is coming maybe a bit too late, but then better late than never. I expected this declaration to come much, much earlier, given the historical context to this very sore issue we are facing. We have to face this international embarrassment to take this position. Having said that, what is important for me is to actually see the clearly rolled out action plans and then the actions that will follow with the impacts. That is what will make the declaration what it is. You will agree with me, Charles, that over the years, Nigerian successive administrations are fond of making declarations. So for me, it is what it is for now. Just a step in the right direction. I listened and read the statement. There were some quick action points rolled out there, albeit they are a bit mid to long term, hiring of boots on the ground, reform of the police and all that. But that being said, we'll expect a more clearly defined action plan that will follow through measure impacts going forward. That is what will make sense to us.
Indeed. And Donu Kogbara, is it your sense that this declaration means the issue of insecurity has now been elevated and will be followed by extraordinary measures?
Well, it's difficult to know what will happen in the medium or long term, but I'd say that President Tinubu is definitely heading in the right direction to accept a kind of security partnership with the United States, headed by Malam Nuhu Ribadu, our national security advisor. Definitely heading in the right direction. However, I wonder why the state of emergency that's been declared is so mild in the north. I mean, in my state, Rivers, a governor was suspended And martial law was more or less imposed, through a military administrator, because the president and his sidekick were having issues with the governor. Now we have states where children are being abducted in droves and people are being slaughtered in villages, and the governors are still there. I wonder why the core northern states or the middle belt states where these crises are most impacting most, are not being replaced by rear admirals and generals. I'm mystified.
That's a legitimate question, except that in these circumstances, he didn't declare it on sort of specific states. He declared a nationwide security emergency.
Well, the implication of that is that maybe the entire nation should be run by army people. You know what I mean? But let's face it, the crisis for now, the eyes of the world are on specific parts of the north. And I'm just wondering why governors who have spectacularly failed to manage the crisis, perhaps through no fault of their own in some instances, I'm just wondering why they're still there.
Well, I think that's a question that really ought to hover in the backs of people's minds. There is a certain argument, certainly for people who are from Rivers State, as they make the comparison. But let me come to you, Chibuzo Okereke, or should I say Dr. Chibuzo Okereke, who is in our off-site studio. I hope you're nice and comfortable there. Now that insecurity has become a front burner priority for this government, what are the initiatives that you expect to see? What will be different now in the approach to this security issue? Let's look at the directive, for instance, to withdraw police from VIPs and transfer them to other roles in order to strengthen frontline security. How significant is that, bearing in mind that between 20 and 40% of Nigeria's police force have been doing administrative and VIP duties?
Thank you, Charles. I think that Mr. President may have been cajoled to make a policy announcement without a corresponding policy action. And these are the kind of challenges we have been facing over time in the country. The announcing that SPUs should be withdrawn from VIPs without the categories of these VIPs being clearly outlined, without any specific mandate being given to the IGP to make daily or weekly reports of the level of withdrawals that are being made and the kind of refresher course that they are going to be undertaking. Also, the president said they should convert the NYSC camps into training grounds. So when you look at the details of such a pronouncement, you wonder whether they are even implementable. The NYSC runs almost 4 streams, every year. As we speak, there is stream 1, batch A, stream 2, and what have you. And most of the NYSC camps were even built by state government and governors. And in the pronouncement, there were no any kind of engagement or partnership or even state party role regarding this approvals or engagement with the state government, and that is a very big challenge. Most of the SPUs you see have been with their principals for 10, 15 years. Some of them do not understand clearly now operational measures of how police work even happen. So, and they require a lot of training. Right. I have told people issue of policy announcement without policy action is a very big issue in the country. And we need to have clear details. President in the past said he doesn't want any minister to move with more than 3 entourage. Who is looking at those policies? Who is following up? Who is implementing them? So okay. I don't see, without clear details, that we're going to have any kind of change soon.
Right. Okay. I think there's some good points there. And I'd like you to sort of cock an ear to those points, Baba Yusuf. And of course, that figure of 11,600 and I think 666 underscores how deeply entrenched VIP guard duty has become in this country's policing culture. In that regard, do you see this as a particularly bold reform move from President Tinubu?
First of all, the numbers that have been reeled out are quite inadequate considering the actual number of people on the SPU, the Special Protection Unit created within the Nigerian Police Force. The numbers we are having are over the realm of 50,000. Of course, there are categories that cannot be withdrawn, diplomatic and others. But that being said, Charles, this policy statement with regards to withdrawal of police providing not just VIP quote unquote, but in reality including domestic services, have been coming out for the past 6-7 years. Under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, this declaration was made. When this present IGP Botokun came on board, he made this declaration as one of his policy statements. Mr. President also about 10 months ago issued this directive. They were not complied with. So what remains to be seen, like I said in my opening remarks, are the follow-up actions to that effect. There were no consequences. I mean, the commander-in-chief gave an instruction and the IGP did same, but it was not implemented. So I will want to see how that would be. With regards to the impact on the current issue on the table, fighting insurgency, fighting the multidimensional insecurity, people have been offline. I mean, the SPU team have been offline for a while. How soon they can be coming back on stream to add value to the fight against insecurity is another issue. But over and beyond that, we have a clear deficit of boots on the ground, Nigerian police, the military and armed forces. We need almost double those numbers. Indeed. And then the sequencing of the hiring process, training and kitting and onboarding them into the field. Are we synchronizing with the timelines of how the bandits and the terrorists are unleashing their own playbook? You see how they are incurring into the next central. They have gone back into Kanu. What is their playbook and how are we countering those playbooks? I want to see a strategic outlay of the fight against insecurity, not just policy statements. We have to synchronize and counter whatever is unraveling. Otherwise, by the time the new hires come on board, including the forest guard don't have capacity to fight these people. Are we bringing equipments? Are we bringing trainings? How are we going to be able to counter and cover the lost ground and also take the higher ground? Right. So I think the working group that has been set up between Nigeria and US is a fantastic one that will enable us to move faster. We're going
to come to that working group in a minute, but let me come to you, Donu. Why do you think the government has been unable to bring the number of kidnappings down? Because we're told that so far this year, there have been more than 7,000 abductions, which is more than the total for last year, which stood at less than 6,000, according to figures from Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. So the numbers are going up.
Well, you see, the thing is, I mean, it's not just the kidnappings. It's a sort of general, I mean, there are a lot of killings as well and other issues. I think you can withdraw as many police as you like from VIPs. You can put as many boots on the ground. You can deploy as many forest guards as you so wish. But if you're basically stealing the defense budget through various, there's a lot of leakages caused by corruption within the military. And believe you me, I know what I'm saying. I've spoken to a couple of people who know these things. And obviously I cannot name them, but this, it's not just a crisis of security, a security crisis. It's a crisis of confidence in the government. And I think that if President Tinubu wants to be taken seriously, if he wants people to cheer up, work with him, because let's face it, a lot of citizen cooperation will help, right? People have to believe in him. I would like to see some serious sorrow expressed about the general who was assassinated on video. I have seen nothing from this government to suggest that it is as appalled as the rest of us are. I would like to see less bumbling nonsense like the interview that you yourself did over this Kwara incident. Why did you let them go? How come you managed to get hold of them when you felt like it? Did you pay ransom? Didn't you pay ransom? Again, maybe they did the right thing, but the message has been communicated so ineptly that nobody trusts them. So I'd say that, there's again, maybe this is unfair, but President Tinubu and Vice President Shettima are suspected of having done some shady compromises with Islamic terrorists or bandits or whatever. I know there are different categories of criminal, causing this problem. Now, maybe they haven't done anything shady, but people believe that they have. So, they have a huge public enlightenment challenge to face up to. And once that has been done, then I will believe that all these police, if they have the will, they can get it done. Sorry.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Donu. I was desperately trying to send sign language, and it was failing spectacularly to somebody in here. Nevertheless, let me come to you, Chibuzo Okereke. We're coming to the end of this segment of the discussion. How much does all this point to a wider issue, which is that the government has failed to provide opportunities for young Nigerians who, in their frustration, are more vulnerable to all kinds of criminal activities?
Yeah, exactly. And that is the challenge I believe we are facing. The greatest gift any nation can give to its citizens is the gift of hope. If your citizens lose hope in the country and what the country stands to offer it, you are facing the biggest challenge of your life. And if we are to make progress, we must seek to build a merit-based society where merit, good-spirited competitiveness is the basis for, reward and, of course, punishment. Actions must have consequences and what have you. And this is where we must go. And in tackling insecurity, we must remember the political economy of insecurity says that this is beyond a social and economic crisis. This is also a business for some people. And that as long as Nigeria continues to face this issue, some people who are into the business of arms importation and, arms smuggling are having a field day. And therefore, lifting people out of poverty is very central. Building a merit-based society is very central. The president's slogan is renewed hope. Maybe this is the time to ensure, using merit and equity, that hope is restored to the people so that they can believe again and offer the values they have for a country that they so much love. But unfortunately, that is on the edge at this time.
And on that reflective note, let's move on, because this was also a week in which President Tinubu approved the constitution of the Nigerian side of the US-Nigeria Joint Working Group. We already touched on that briefly. It's led by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. It's a collaborative effort that aims to strengthen bilateral cooperation and address this country's insecurity issues. The group is made up of senior officials from relevant government establishments, including the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Defense, Interior, and Humanitarian Affairs, among others. So can this joint effort really make a dent in Nigeria's security challenges? And let me come to you, Baba Yusuf. Is the US genuinely interested in helping Nigeria tackle insecurity, or is this a move to exert influence over this country, as some people have suggested?
Yes and no, Charles. And I wouldn't blame the United States of America, because we all know everybody works for his interest. Foreign policy should drive overall national, development strategy for everybody, in Nigeria inclusive. We dropped the ball, we left the window open, and it's an opportunity for the United States of America. I've written severally about this. And if we say the United States of America or the Western powers or superpowers are going for our mineral resources, what did we do to provide good governance? What did we do to secure the country? The argument is, are we having challenges? And the answer is yes. If for whatever ulterior motives, the number one country in the world is asserting itself on us, then we would have done something that allowed them to do so. What was our strategy ab initio? What is our strategy now? The lukewarm attitude of the political class with regards to this issue that has been there for about 15 years and getting worse is what has brought us to this situation. Mm-hmm. Having said that, the US has leverage, it has capacity, no doubt, and it is left to us now to leverage this opportunity and say we also sought for help maybe at a point in time or not, or got it. Of course, the issue of corruption are there. Now we have a working group, which I commend and I appreciate, because there's an opportunity for us to work out a win-win, outcome. If our own team, under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, craft out a well-crafted deal with President Trump for us to be able to make milestone whatever the intent of America is. Otherwise, at the end of the day, the US will have their way, they will get what they want, and will still be locked down in this situation. I will land with this. Wherever the United States of America has provided intervention, is there peace today? So while we are working out the intervention, we will make sure we don't end up like a Libya, like an Afghanistan or any other country. I believe we will not get there. But I think the political class have gotten a wake-up call with this position of the US. The rest remains to be seen, how our people on the side of the working group are able to utilize this opportunity to kill this issue. But whatever we are doing with the working group, let's not make no mistake about it.
Right.
The leadership of this country have a constitutional mandate. It is their call to deliver.
Right. And Donu, I wonder if you're concerned that the Nigerian side of this US-Nigeria joint working group seems to have more Muslims than Christians when the issue is about alleged genocide, at least from the American side, the alleged genocide against Christians. And the group is made up of mostly people from the North and the Southwest, and there don't appear to be people from the affected communities in that group. I mean, does that rather undermine trust in it from the outset?
Well, I didn't know about the composition of the group. I only heard that Nuhu Ribadu was heading it. If it's true that it comprises mostly Northerners and Southwesterners, then yeah, but what do you expect? I mean,
well, I mean, there are not a lot of people from, for example, the North Central region there who are the people who are complaining about the Christian sort of attack or whatever. I mean, I'm not, obviously we all agree that there isn't a sort of focused, government-driven sort of genocide against Christians, but Christians are being killed as well as Muslims, and the two sides should be reflected in that group. Well, I mean, that's the argument some people are making.
Well, I mean, there may not be a government-focused genocide against Christians, but there's been a lot of collusion from government people, which includes some tainted armed force personnel against Christians. But, Muslims have also died. We've been having this debate for weeks. But, what do you expect from a government that's headed by a Muslim ticket? We've always traditionally had one Christian and one Muslim at the top of the tree. This time we have two Muslims. They're not very sensitive, Charles. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that the working group that's supposed to be representative of, a broader base is so narrowly based. They don't really care what anyone thinks. This goes back to what I was saying about crisis of confidence. If they want people like me and the many, many, many Nigerians out there who don't have a chance to appear on Arise TV, if they want us to trust them, they got to start behaving better than this. It's just too cheap. It's cheap and nasty. I'm shocked to hear that there's no middle belt Christians on that group. And I hope that...
No, we're not saying that there isn't... I mean, there are some Christians on it, but it's the way that it's spread out. You see what I mean? That's the sense that is being... coming through to people is that there is a preponderance of people from one side of the country and not from other parts of the country, and certainly not people who are some of those communities that have been targeted. That have fallen victim, let me put it that way, to these attacks. So let me come to you, Chibuzo. This joint group starts to meet, hopefully soon. You were talking previously about the need to kind of give young people a sort of fillip in this country. Should Nigeria prioritize addressing the root causes of insecurity, such as poverty and unemployment, and seize the opportunity of this joint working group with the Americans to try and advance those issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, Charles, I don't know about this joint working group. This is a forced marriage. If President Trump didn't raise issues or designate Nigeria as a CPC country, and our government didn't go into frenzy reaction, sending people to France, to Germany, and all different media houses in Europe to explain and provide context and what they say to understand what is happening in Nigeria better. We wouldn't have any working group in the first place. So I wouldn't focus more about the working group because it's going to end in another paper and strategy plan that is so beautiful about kinetic and non-kinetic measures, economic and peace-building effort. We already know the things that will be in the document. My interest now is the end product of this working group. How is it going to quell the business of insecurity in Nigeria that so many people are profiting from? How is it going to restore hope and trust to young people in Nigeria? We cannot run an economic empowerment system that is hugely based on political patronage. And that is why we must return to inspiring hope by building a merit-based society. It's not rocket science, it can be done. Things can be successfully and competitively done so that the best of us gets opportunity and not, the less of us, which is the big issue, we are facing today in the country. So I would like whether the composition is right or not, let the Nigerian team remember, like Baba Yusuf said, under Chapter 2 of our Constitution, that we have the constitutional mandate to provide and protect lives and the welfare, provide welfare for the Nigerian people, and that you have the mandate to build equal socio-economic opportunity for everyone that is not based on discrimination. We've created a Federal Character Commission, for instance. Even the composition of the Federal Character Commission and the operations does not reflect anything federal character. And that is the institutional problem we face that will require political will to deal with.
Indeed. And let me come to you, Baba Yusuf, as briefly as you can, because we've got to go on a break in a hot second. But one of the issues that has always been raised in this country, and I think you yourself have raised that innumerable times, is the issue of corruption, transparency, and all the rest of it. Do you think the Americans should put in place mechanisms to ensure transparency and accountability in Nigeria in the implementation of the joint working group's agreements and whatever help they're going to extend to Nigeria?
Excellent question, Charles. Good stuff. You've already started setting the agenda for the group. And to be honest, yesterday I was excited when I saw some of the provisions in the bill presently in the Capitol before the House of Representatives of the United States of America with regards to sanctioning some politically exposed persons in Nigeria. I think it's a way to go to embolden that in the working group discussions. Corruption is the fundamental issue in Nigeria. It transcends insecurity, economy, and everything. And I think those provisos within the bill, I personally, as a Nigerian, I want that bill to be passed because politically exposed person now will know that some people are taking action. Because the corruption index that I rolled out every year, I challenge the developed countries that they are in cahoots with our people because they collect the money only afterwards to start and try to claim holier than thou. So very good point you have made. Let that be part of the total package because like Dr. Chibuzo said, it is part of the issue that people are benefiting from this in the political class, in the traditional institution, and the entire leadership value chain. So unless we address that pari passu, we are not going to see the end of it.
Okay, I have to take a break. We will come back in a minute. You're watching Arise Primetime. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our assessment of the week that was. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now let's continue our assessment of the news of the week at the end of a fateful week in which Guinea-Bissau installed an army general as transitional president following the coup d'etat that removed the former president Umaru Sissoco Embalo. The African Union and the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS have condemned the takeover, the latest in a series of coups and attempted coups in Guinea-Bissau. In point of fact, it's the country's 15th military takeover. And it begs the question, why is Guinea-Bissau so prone to military coups? And what's next for the country? And still with me, looking back at the week that was, our guest commentators, the policy strategist and group CEO of the global investment and trade company, Baba Yusuf, the Niger Delta activist, international multimedia journalist and former BBC correspondent, Donu Kogbara, and the legislative consultant and public policy analyst, Dr. Chibuzo Okereke. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much indeed for staying with us. I was supposed to go to you, Chibuzo, but I think that would deny Donu a turn, because I think it is her turn after this. I mean, what is your sense, Donu, of why Guinea-Bissau appears to be so prone to military coups? I mean, could it be because it has never managed to consolidate its democracy, in part because the ruling party never came to power through elections, but came to power through a successful war of independence against Portugal?
Well, I would be lying if I claimed to be an expert on Guinea-Bissau. Honestly, I don't know. All I can say is that they do come across as sort of extremely undisciplined politically and militarily. This particular coup looks to me as if it was engineered by President Embalo, because he was losing.
Well, there is that suspicion,
yes,
certainly.
I have,
but no evidence.
I have a mole who was stranded in Guinea-Bissau this week, and this is his own opinion. So I'm only parroting an opinion that was shared with me by somebody who's in the country right now. So, you know, I guess they're just unruly. You know, some countries, organizations and groups are like that. And I'm flabbergasted.
And let me follow up on that, Chibuzo Okereke, because Guinea-Bissau's ousted president Umaru Sissoco Embalo has left the country and arrived in Senegal. And what we know about how he left is that Senegal sent a flight and extracted him from Guinea-Bissau and flew him to Dakar. Is it unusual that he was allowed to leave the country? Because you often see situations where someone who is deposed is locked up rather than allowed to leave.
Charles, a frontline eyewitness, no less a person than former President Jonathan himself, was there live. He was even trapped. And he has granted interview to say there was no coup in Guinea-Bissau, that this was simply a stage managed by the president himself, observing that he may have lost the election, that in fact he was even the one making calls and granting press interviews saying a coup had taken place, which is unusual in a coup situation. And you see, the political structure in Guinea-Bissau was never designed for democracy to thrive. That is because, on one hand, he had the power to suspend a parliament. The parliament had tenure of 4 years, while the president will have 5 years, which means the president will have to supervise the election of parliamentarians. And then we understand that the judges, the judiciary, and the judges he appointed simply serves as the pleasure of the president. So in such a political arrangement, you cannot expect democracy to thrive. There are other things we have heard about what may have transpired there. And the seamless way in which he moved to Senegal will also tell you that, and from history, you know, Guinea-Bissau have not recorded a second-term president in more than 3 decades now. Always, when the president is about to get a second term, something happens and then he ends up doing only one term. So on the general note, it's a very big challenge for African democracy. A democracy rollback or regression, as some people have now put it, in Africa, and particularly in West Africa, is something that has become, a very big challenge. And people are beginning to ask the value of democracy, the value of election. Because, you see, our people can't just be interested about the next election, perpetuating themselves in office and power. Power and control seem to be more important to many African leaders than democracy and governance. And when you are not able to manage democracy by ensuring legitimacy and popular participation and effective working of institutions, you are going to keep having, as Madam said, so much indiscipline within the political class that they don't appear to believe that they even have a country they want to lead. And we are experiencing same in terms of the character of democracy in Nigeria and many other African countries. Yeah.
And just to go beyond Guinea-Bissau specifically, Baba Yusuf, does it look to you like military coups, which for a long time were seen as no longer fashionable in Africa, are making a comeback?
Yes, it's a reflection of the illusion of democracy, I call it, in Africa, as it is waning, because the so-called political class hide under the cloak of democracy and even sometimes perpetrate more evil than the military. It is historical and is documented. If you take Nigeria, for example, the political class have been part and parcel of coups and counter-coups. What is happening in Guinea-Bissau is like a smaller or more rough version of what happens in other countries like Nigeria. And taking it up from there, when you have sit-type presidents like Olassane Ouattara in Cote d'Ivoire, you have the man in Cameroon and the one in Uganda, and you have the sectorial or regional of organizations like ECOWAS that are hobnobbing with these people that are sitting out, not calling them out, but only quick to call out the military when they take over. As far as I'm concerned, you try to wonder whether it's neither here nor there. Because if we are doing democracy and one of the partners within an ECOWAS sub-region, for example, is trying to stray, we should have politicians that should stand and say, this is not what we signed up to do. Otherwise, you are opening up a window to something that we may not be able to control. And that is why you see the Sahel region is becoming more greener and greener on the military side, and countries like Guinea-Bissau are copying from us. It's all about leadership. It's all about leadership, because if Nigeria or other countries are demonstrating that leadership in terms of institutionalizing democracy, you will see those smaller countries by reason of osmosis and diffusion copying in a way seamlessly. And you can see how another democratically elected president in Senegal, who were praising to the high heavens, have given a safe haven to this man that had arranged a coup in his country. It's a tragedy of democracy, as I call it, in Africa. And it is becoming more and more bold.
And you are nodding vigorously there, Donu. I mean, is there a sense that ECOWAS and the African Union lack the political will to discourage coups across Africa beyond just verbally condemning and suspending, the offending country from the bloc? Because, I mean, in the past, somebody was just reminding me that, I mean, beyond the more recent one where Nigeria took action over in Gambia, I mean, there used to be a greater will for some sort of concerted action to stop these things.
Well, I interviewed President Biya of Sierra Leone earlier on this year, and my sense is that he's a very serious-minded person. He's now the chair of ECOWAS. He was our rep at the United Nations, for a while for the continent. So I don't doubt his sincerity. But, I have a slightly different view about coups. I don't think they're always a bad thing, or at least they are a reflection of a breakdown of trust, law and order, discipline, poverty alleviation, all those things that worry people. And I think one of the reasons why President Tinubu, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, and everybody must take what they're doing very seriously and get as much help as they can from the Americans is because there are two very real risks that can escalate out of the status quo. One is that there will be eventually a military coup, as people just lose confidence in the government, democracy. And two is that there will be a disintegration of the country. These are very, very real risks. In fact, I was thinking the other day, Donald Trump is offering us help. I mean, he offered to build a wall between America and Mexico. Some people would love him to build a wall between the North and the South. So, maybe he can deploy his wall building talents here. But no.
As long as there are holes within the wall. Because I actually like to go to the north, to be honest. I do enjoy traveling up there.
Don't worry, I'm sure they'll give you a visa. But, but what I'm saying is that...
just very briefly, because we're going to move on. We're almost out of time. You can finish your thought.
Okay. All I was saying is that we also have to put pressure on the president in a democratic way through the National Assembly, the media, to do this thing in a very disciplined, with forensic precision.
Okay.
Let the Americans handle the procurement and the spending. Do not let the Nigerian government raise billions and then it disappears.
Okay. Right? Well, let me just move on very quickly, because I've just been told we've got just about 5 minutes. You mentioned President Trump. He has said he will permanently pause all migration from what he called third world countries. In a social media post, he wrote that he would terminate all of what he called the millions of illegal Biden admissions. He also said he would end all federal benefits to non-citizens and denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility. And he was writing after it was announced that one of the U.S. National Guard soldiers who were shot on Wednesday in Washington, 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom, has died. The second National Guard member, 24-year-old Andrew Wolf, is said to be fighting for his life. The suspected gunman is an Afghan national, and Mr. Trump confirmed an earlier announcement by the administration that they sought to target 19 countries. So far, they haven't named them, but correspondents believe Afghanistan, Iran, Somalia, Venezuela would be included. And Chibuzo Okereke, very briefly, because we're almost out of time, so if you could really keep it brief, would appreciate it. I'll start by asking you the question I asked our special correspondent James Blue, who is based in the US. Is there a sense that this is a sad day for America because one of its soldiers has died, but it is an especially sad day for migrants in the US because they are being scapegoated once again?
Well, Charles, I think this is more of a sad day for America and less of a sad day for the rest of the third world countries. One, this shows the value the American state places on their military personnel, which you don't find in this part of the world. Yes, one may be bothered about the error of generalization, characterizing the behavior of one person to affect many other people. But beyond that, the psychological stimuli it gives to the military officers in America is that their country stands for them. They can fight for them. And you cannot just come and assault, murder or displace a man in uniform and get away with it. So there, it's a big warning, and I think it's important that the states are taking that position.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And Baba Yusuf, it now seems that the Trump administration will review the status of people, not just from Afghanistan, but as we mentioned, 18 other countries, ones it considers high risk. We talked about Cuba, Haiti, Somalia, Venezuela, etc. Thankfully, Nigeria is not among them. What can those countries on the list expect to see as President Trump and his supporters make the case that what they're doing is trying to make America safer in the wake of an attack on American soldiers? And as Chibuzo mentioned, is there perhaps a lesson for Nigeria there in terms of how it should react when Nigerian troops are attacked?
Very correct, Charles, that those countries, of course, will have to expect an escalation of, the unleashing of mayhem by President Donald Trump on the migrants, but not just those ones. He said third world country, has already categorized it. So Nigerians should also watch out. I don't expect any change in disposition and action from President Donald Trump. And after all, he's defending his country, he's defending his people. For Nigeria, we can see the premium being placed on not just the military in the United States, but everybody that is serving, working in the protection and service department, is ready to die for the country because the country is ready to have its back. We should take that as a lesson with the current ongoing fight against, terrorism in this country. And that should be the watchword, but then it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Right. Okay, and a final word from you, Donu. It's interesting that President Trump has faced himself 2 assassination attempts, both of those at the hands of white American men. But he's certainly not calling for some sort of reinvestigation or re-vetting or additional security steps for white American men, is he?
No, I'm really disturbed by this, the racism, the hatred of black and brown people. I mean, the white Americans, at least the right-wing ones,
briefly
talk as if they own that land. They don't own it. They stole it from brown people who were there before they arrived. So they should be a little bit more flexible. They were all immigrants themselves at one time. So, I'm begging Trump, I'm grateful that you've given the Nigerian government a wake-up call, but can you please be less horrible to people in your own country?
And on that salutary note, I want to thank all of you very much indeed. Donu Kogbara is a Niger Delta activist, international multimedia journalist, and former BBC correspondent. Baba Yusuf is a group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company and a policy strategist. And Dr. Chibuzo Okereke is a legislative consultant and public policy analyst. Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for watching.